Big exciting news as Steve Mnuchin raises his deal offer overnight. He has 2 interviews in less than 8 hours and great promising news to get closer to a second stimulus deal. But will the deal be hatched the day after the election? That's the interesting twist. And this is a great new morning for Thursday morning of Mornings LALATE. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope you're good and safe. The toast is buttering. No, the toast is toasting. The butter is buttering. The coffee's brewing. When the toast starts buttering itself, I think we're in trouble. Well, at least maybe then we're in Justin's times. I'm here, you're here, your dog and cat. We now have lizards, parrots, apparently alligators, and a lot of other exotic species now tuning into this channel as well. So I really appreciate the entire family for being here. It's an exciting Thursday morning with great news. I'm very excited for you, so thank you for tuning in for another broadcast of Mornings LALATE. Go to the Fuzz channel, subscribe, because we're going to keep on pushing and kicking all the way to 200,000 to 300,000 subscribers. We just reached 292, so congratulations. Also, like this video. In this video, I'm going to be going over a lot of great, exciting, energizing news that came in the last 8 hours. It comes from not one, but 2 Steve Mnuchin interviews. There was one last night on Lou Dobbs, which a lot of you watched and a lot of you sent me messages about, and there was one minutes ago on CNBC. The vast majority and collective nature of those 2 interviews shows that Steve Mnuchin has raised his deal offer either by number or language or both. Second, he's identified more money for stimulus. This is incredibly great news. Third, he throws a new wrinkle into the situation by suggesting that the Temple Due might actually agree to all these numbers the day after the election. That is quite interesting. And finally, the real shocking news, which should not come to any of you if you tuned into Early Mornings LALATE, which has already been a hit this morning, that the new jobless numbers was released minutes ago, and it was not good. In fact, it was far worse than I had even predicted on Early Mornings LALATE. All right, let's get to the breaking news, and let's start with those numbers. On Early Mornings LALATE, I told you the big thing to watch for this Thursday morning is the new jobless claims, released every morning about 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I told you expect something in the 800,000 range. Remember, these are new people going on jobless claims for the first time since the pandemic hit, and the numbers that came out today were horrible. They came in at 898. We're almost now to 900,000. The Wall Street was expecting 830. How bad is this? This is the worst number since August 22nd. If you've been with this channel for a while, which I think you have, and I appreciate your patronage, the number was about 200,000 before the pandemic hit. It shot to 1 million. It stayed at 9 million for 23 weeks, the longest, worst run since the Great Depression. It then dropped around to mid-800s and then basically stayed flat for the last 4 weeks, showing no improvement. But now we show not only no improvement, it's now getting worse. This is amid what I had called for expectations on this channel with new layoffs in furloughs in airlines, hospitality, and food services in the last 2 weeks. I expected the numbers to get bad. They were bad. But let's turn to some great news. The great news as we start the new morning is a higher deal offer from Steve Mnuchin. Oh, this is really great. Now, it's coming in 2 waves. It's coming first in numbers and also language. When we talk about language, we mean that more people are eligible to get the relief, or the relief is more comprehensive. And so it's actually a double positive. It comes in several items. It doesn't come in your stimulus check. It doesn't come in your enhanced unemployment benefits, but it comes in the overall package. He said, told CNBC in an interview minutes ago, recorded this Thursday morning, not last night, that he's increased his overall amount for testing. We've agreed to $178 billion overall for health. It's an extraordinary amount of money. We'd agreed with the Democrats with $75 billion to testing, contact tracing. What we've been focused on is the language around the testing. When I spoke to Speaker Pelosi today, I'm going to tell what he's referring to, what's coming up later this Thursday. I'm going to tell her that I'm not going to let the testing issue stand in the way. We fundamentally agree with the language of the testing to some minor issues. This is being overblown. What he says is, I'm not going to hold up your stimulus checks. I'm not going to hold up your FPUC. I'm not going to hold up your rent aid or other stimulus items that look like hazard pay because they're also grant items. I'm not going to hold them up because of the language of testing. I'm just going to agree to her language of testing. And we have an incredible amount for the amount. $75 million for testing, $28 million for vaccines. What's incredibly great news about this is that there is agreement for your stimulus checks. There is agreement for rent aid. There is agreement for the EIDL grant, the frontline worker grant, the hazard pay-ish grant. That all is agreed upon. He was not asked about the $400 a week. He did not suggest that his $400 a week is an impasse. So this is also really promising news. Next. He also suggested that the deal can be got potentially the day after the election. Now, this is a really interesting new wrinkle for Thursday morning. What are his deal items? Well, his deal items are categorically incredible. And they're categorically great amounts that are bigger amounts for you than what the Democrats are proposing. They're bigger amounts to get into your pocket, longer periods of payments to you to get in your pockets. All incredibly great news. Let me go over them. First, stimulus checks. $1,200 individuals. $2,400 married couples. Well, what if that individual is a dependent on someone else's tax return? You're getting a full stimulus check, $1,200. Thank God this is more than the Democrats have proposed. And thank God it is a digression and an improvement from CARES Act 1, the first stimulus package in March, in that they didn't pay stimulus checks to dependents. So if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, and railroad benefits and are a dependent on someone else's tax return, you did not get a stimulus check into the first package. This time you would, $1,200. If you're not a dependent, you're getting a full stimulus check. So some viewers yesterday in the comments said, well, I'm on Social Security, how much will I get? $1,200. I'm on veterans benefits and I'm not a dependent, how much will I get? $1,200. I'm a husband and wife and we're both on Social Security, how much will we get? $2,400. All incredibly great news. This is incredibly great news with nothing taken out for child support, nothing taken out for state or local taxes, nothing taken out for debt collections. Incredible great news. Now let's talk about the children. Children, $1,000. Oh my goodness, this is good. So the children are getting a bigger stimulus check. Both of these amounts are more generous, as the president would say, than the Democrats' proposal. So this is incredibly great news. More money for both groups. So if you're a single mom and you have 4 kids, you would get $1,200 and your 4 kids would get $1,000. Husband and wife, 3 kids, $1,200, $1,000. Really incredible. So then what happens with FPUC? Well, FPUC is more money as well. This is incredibly great news. It spans a longer time frame. It goes all the way to mid-January, much longer than anything the Democrats proposed. This is incredible. The $400 a week, every week, all the way from September to mid-January. What Mnuchin has done is he's expanded the week of eligibility, giving you more weeks of enhanced unemployment benefits into mid-January. Previously, it would expire right around New Year's Eve, which no one wants. During the thick of winter, when the snow is dropping, your FPUC expires. Congratulations, it's the new year, your FPUC expired. No one wants that, so he expands it into mid-January. This is incredibly great news. The retroactive part is okay. I'd rather have it better. Retroactive is to middle September. By doing that, he's giving you less on the back end, but more on the front end. I prefer it to go back further, but ultimately he's giving you more weeks, so this is a really good element. Next, how fast would you get these stimulus checks? You would get them 10 days after they become law. So the moment in which they become a law electronically, if you're set up for SSDI, SSI, or Social Security or railroad benefits, you would get it 10 days thereafter. This is incredibly great news. If you pay your taxes electronically, you would also get them 10 days thereafter. Also great news. Paper checks about a week later. Now, this is all incredibly interesting and fascinating as we start the new day. But how about this weird wrinkle about a deal the day after the election? Well, he was asked this morning on CNBC, and he was asked last night on Lou Dobbs, why no deal just yet? He said that Speaker Pelosi is trying to not give a deal to the American people so that there is no deal effectuated at the time in which they go to vote, and ultimately using the American people as a pawn to get Joseph Biden elected. Now, when asked to comment about it, he was respectful and had no comment about it. But then when asked further about the situation, he basically said that he thinks a deal would be hatched the day after the election. Ultimately, do you think this president will do a deal the day after the election if he loses? Drop in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. I have an opinion. I don't think I'm so positive about that message. Mnuchin phrased it in the message of, well, the president's winning on election day, and so the day after the president wins, he's going to give you a stimulus package because the Temple Doom will roll over and simply sign on the dotted line. Well, that's presuming the president wins. What if the president loses? What happens the day after election day? What's strange in this Lou Dobbs interview were the reactions. I had reactions from viewers of this channel in your private messages. I read the reactions of viewers on Fox Business. I read the reviews of viewers who watched it on Fox Business's YouTube channel. And the interesting reaction was they were very mixed. A lot of negative comments about Nancy Pelosi, but also a lot of negative comments about Steve Mnuchin. What I've told you is the following, that I'm not going to use this channel as a way to run fake narratives. And it's interesting because this morning, CNBC's Jim Cramer and David Faber were asked about comments by Larry Kudlow yesterday. And they said, we just don't really talk about him anymore because everything he says is a fake positive, that his information is overly positive and overly inaccurate. And that's sort of my opinion of the situation. So in his remarks, Steve Mnuchin's made a lot of comments that were just grossly inaccurate, grossly contradictory to what Steve Mnuchin has said before. And you know what? I'm not going to focus on it. I'm not going to focus on it. And I saw you in some of your comments certainly had some comments about it. I'm not going to put my breath to this channel to focus on incorrect statements by Secretary Mnuchin. What I will focus on was the money that is now out there. We saw from Steve Mnuchin on Lou Dobbs say that there's $130 million sitting around in PPP. Ironically, this is yet the third number that we've heard. We've heard there's $300 million. We've heard there's $200 million. Now he says there's $130 million from the last round of PPP. Let me explain to you why this number seems to be changing. It's important for the purposes of executive orders. When we talk about executive orders for stimulus check, we want to ensure there's enough money for it. Stimulus checks by executive order, stay with me because this is going to get very fascinating very quickly. Stimulus checks for executive order need about $280-ish, $290-ish to send out a full stimulus check, the $1,200 to all American citizens. This is what's important. How much money is sitting around to cover that? Well, in the Lou Dobbs interview, Steve Mnuchin said there's $130 million sitting around from the last PPP round. Okay. How about the first PPP round? What Steve Mnuchin fails to indicate to you is that there was $300 billion sitting around from the first stimulus PPP round. So don't assume that he means there's only $130 million sitting around in PPP, $1 billion sitting around in PPP. It's 130 plus 300, which is now 430 just in first round and last round of PPP. A lot of money. In fact, it's too much money. In fact, it's enough money for 2 stimulus checks. In fact, it's enough money for 1 stimulus check and a round of FPUC. Next, he says he has $200 billion in Federal Reserve money sitting around that I can reallocate it. Okay, now this is a bombshell. I told you to stay with me. I hope you're still with me. It's a 14-minute mark. I told you there's a lot of stuff coming up in this video. What the hell is this $200 billion? This is a big revelation. And this is money that I have never accounted for in this channel. This is money I have never covered. I've always told you there's about $500 billion sitting around. Okay, this is another $200 billion on top of this. This now brings it to $700 billion. 300 from first PPP, 130 from the last round of PPP, $200 billion from Federal Reserve. Okay, we're at 700. I'm not done yet. This is Monty Hall. Want to make a deal? Want to see what's behind curtain number one? This is The Price is Right. Okay, the price is still not right because I got more money for you. He also indicated that there's money, billions and billions of dollars in the National Security and Cargo Fund account. The who? The what? I need a sirloin voice for that. The who? What? We're just moving on out. It's just, what is this? Well, we've been hearing about this. I almost cursed. We've been hearing about these airlines for a couple weeks. We all have a lot of opinions about these airlines that are trying to jump ahead of you for their stimulus relief after they already got $28 billion before. We've heard about the hospitality industry trying to jump ahead of you, now getting stimulus before you. Well, guess what? Secretary Mnuchin has identified additional funds enough to cover the $20 billion or $28 billion for the airlines in the National Security and Cargo Fund account. See, I told you, there's just, I'm the purple guy here in LA. There is billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars sitting around that can be reallocated, that is sitting around in Washington. And the fact that I can find for you, sitting on set in Los Angeles, $700 billion, there's probably upwards of $900 billion. I'm just telling you how much that I can personally find. This is incredibly great news because basically, there's a lot of money out there, and this can all be done by executive orders. I want to qualify my answer right now and make it very clear. I'm not going to give Secretary Mnuchin lip service with his fake narrative last night about what he can and cannot do with the money. Let's make this very clear. This Trump administration, this White House administration, reallocated money that was dedicated for disaster relief in FEMA for the purposes of enhanced unemployment benefits, and did it for 6 weeks, well, upwards of 8 weeks, because it took several weeks to get it going. Did it without act of Congress, did it by making a phone call, did it by executive orders. So I know that there'll be some people that'll drop in the comments and say, well, Secretary Mnuchin said this and Secretary Mnuchin says this. Untrue. I'm not going to run his fake narrative, nor will I run Larry Kudlow's fake narrative or Nancy Pelosi's fake narrative. It's time to do the executive order, Mr. President, and we've heard enough fake narratives. Time to do it. We now know there's a lot of money. So Purple Power, you need to push. You need to be pushing on social media and be pushing for executive orders right now, because ultimately the timing issue is at hand. What's the timing issue? The timing issue is that if Trump wins the election, then the possibility to have the Temple Doom sign the deal offer currently on the table the day after the election is very high. But if Trump loses the election, then the potential of Trump doing any deal is very low. Ultimately, this is not playing into Pelosi's hands very well, because if anyone who watches this channel listens to what I just said will say, well, that makes it sound that I should vote for Trump because he's the one who's going to give me my stimulus package. There's a strange dichotomy here, and I need to make it very clear before I get to some of your comments, is that Nancy Pelosi wants a Biden win. We got that. Biden would come in January. We got that. Biden would do legislation and it would get the money in your hands by March. We got that. It would not help Biden, but would really hurt Biden, his economy, his administration, the American people, the American families, you, everyone else would be hurt dramatically to have no stimulus relief in their hands until March of 2021. And so ultimately there's a path of problems in even Pelosi's own strategy for herself. You can't help someone, Joe Biden, by saying, I'm going to hold up America's stimulus relief so they get it 6 months, and so deal with a new economy, Joe, when you're elected, because it'll be in a mess 6 months into office. Well, 3 months into office. It doesn't make sense. So ultimately, something's going to change, and the situation is very fluid. Let me get to some of your 3,000 comments from yesterday. Can you imagine? This channel used to get about 1,200 comments on Mornings LALATE just about 4 days ago. We're now to 3,000. Yonda, vote her out. Ginger, not enough paper to make a list of who disagrees with Nancy. Mary, oh, she's so full of it. David, I've never liked Nancy. Kelly, she's not even telling her own people what's in the bill. DOC, if she's willing to starve Americans to get her way, imagine what she'll do with power. Vonda, vote her out. Rita, Pelosi's heartless. Kim, she avoids everyone's questions. Billy, the president needs to do executive orders on stimulus. Amen. Alice, why is she still pushing the strings? Diane, I think that Nancy Pelosi has dementia. Margaret Smith, how did we ever get to this position where one dingbat is holding up the livelihoods of the American people? It's called the Democratic Party. They designated this woman to negotiate on behalf of all Democrats. It's a horrible idea. Expressionists. This is why politicians and other leaders were publicly... I'm not reading the rest of that comment. You can fill it in for yourself. Brenda, the president and the other people in the White House need to force her to leave. Patty, and she actually has the nerve to say she's the only one that knows anything about anything. Are you serious? Yeah, she did say that yesterday. Robertine, she's never answered the questions. She talks around them. Referring to the Wolf Blitzer interview. Christopher Albro, she doesn't represent anybody but herself. I really appreciate you for tuning in for Mornings LALATE. I think by the time of this taping, but not by the time you watch this video, there will be almost 30 to 40,000 people who watched that 1 hour broadcast this morning. So it's a big hit. And I really appreciate the kind remarks from my viewers on the East Coast that asked for programming in the morning before Mornings LALATE. As always, thank you for joining me. Go to the Fun's channel, subscribe. Let's get to 300,000 subscribers. Let's do it. Let's get going. It's going to be a great day. I really feel it, and I hope you feel it too. Also, like this video. Coming up next is 28. Big hit recording yesterday. A lot of people tuned in with a lot of comments, so I'll be going over your comments on that recording. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay of LA for more.